Thank you.
I am so glad to see all of you here today. We have a treat. Reverend Kusula Bhikshu. Now, he is a Buddhist monk in Los Angeles, and he just gives himself so totally to every situation. He is a person that we absolutely love to be here when Dr. Jim is out of town. And if you've never heard him, you're going to love him as well as we do. He's got, I believe, you have a website. Is that correct?
A couple.
Oh, he's got a couple. I've only seen one, but he'll tell you what they are. And he's also on Facebook, which I follow him on Facebook. He makes a difference in people's lives, as we all do, whether we realize it or not. So it is my honor and my privilege to introduce to you Reverend Kusula Bhikshu.
All righty. So I'm going to talk about love and kindness today, but I'm going to start off with a little story. That a woman suggested I get a DVD, and I don't have Netflix or stuff like that, so I went on Amazon.com and found a used copy for like $3, and it's called Genesis. But it has nothing to do with the Bible. It had something to do with evolution and how it all started, according to this film director who seemed to be Japanese. And it was done really nicely. I mean, there was beautiful scenery and colors and the story. And I'm watching this recreation of how it all started, and I started to become depressed, you know? And then about halfway through, I just had to turn it off. And I'll give you the synopsis. I'll just, short and sweet. These creatures sort of came out of the ocean onto land, and they were like really hungry. So they found some foliage and some plants, and they started eating that. And then we started to evolve, and we decided, well, maybe something would taste better than plants. And so we found little creatures that walked around, and we sort of ate those. And then we just kept eating bigger and more complicated things, you know. But of course, in order to eat them, we had to kill them. So it was like, so the first act that we did was to kill something to eat, whether it be a plant or an animal. And then, of course, the second thing we did was replicate. So we would eat, and then we'd have sex, then we'd eat and have sex. And that's sort of why we're all here and what we're sort of still doing, you know? We haven't changed a lot. So I'm thinking, okay, so what does it mean to be a human being? And what did the Buddha say about this? And what was really unique, and of course I'm not encouraging you, but the Buddha said we can eat simply if we want to. We can eat the lowest life form rather than the highest life form. And not all Buddhists are vegetarians, that's for sure. And he went on to say that we really don't even need to have sex. You won't die. You might think you will, but you won't. And you can still live and have a full life. And I thought, what a radical concept that is after watching how the world started. And it showed me that the opportunity we have as humans, what we can do with our life, if we so choose. Now I'm going to talk about love through kindness. I was asked to read a book about love by a famous author and give some thought and comments and maybe even do a Skype interview with him. And I started to read the book, and I declined to write anything or to even interview. Because, you know, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what love is. Everybody has this concept, but I know people who love their shoes. And some of the shoes I've seen, I can understand why. You know, and they love their motorcycle or their guitar or their children or their wife, or they love to eat or they love to sleep. I mean, this word is used all the time for a variety of things, and I'm not quite sure what the deal is with love. So I don't advocate love. What I advocate is kindness. And I think what we can do is express our love through kindness. And there's a way to do it. There's actually a technique to do this, and I want to share that with you. Now, Buddhism talks a lot about karma. Karma is everything we think, everything we say, and everything we do. Karma allows us to change the arc of our life. Karma allows us to be present in every moment and create the next one. So what did the Buddha say about karma? He said this. He said, I am the owner of my karma. I was born of my karma. I am dependent on my karma. I will die because of my karma. Whatever intention I have, speech or action I shall do, whether skillful or unskillful, the results will be mine. Now, when I came to Buddhism, what I liked about karma was the fact that karma was indifferent. Karma didn't care if I was good or bad. Karma didn't penalize me because of something that I should have known or should have done. It lacked intention. I like that idea because what it meant is some great force wasn't out to get me, that I was responsible for my life every day in every way. And if I didn't like my life, I could change it by being present in the moment, by being aware of what I was thinking, what I was saying, and what I was doing. So Buddhism is a lot of things, but I think one of the most important things, Buddhism is about changing your karma. About changing your karma. We start simply. If you want to be kind, the foundation of your kindness depends, from a Buddhist perspective, on the 5 precepts. And you've heard me speak about these before, but I'll remind you what they are. The first precept is not to take life. So if you want to be kind in your life, don't take the life of others, from the very small to the very large. If you want to be kind in your life, don't take stuff that doesn't belong to you. If you want to be kind in your life, avoid sexual misconduct. If you want to be kind in your life, don't lie. What is the truth? I see Reverend Maggie's going to be talking about what is the truth. What is the truth? The problem with lying is it undermines the reality of the person being lied to. Now, what blew me away was the Supreme Court heard a case about somebody in California who said he was a Medal of Honor winner. And he was elected to office because of that. And he saw nothing wrong with that. And they took it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said it was okay to lie about being a Medal of Honor winner, that it didn't really affect the outcome of anything. And I thought, my gosh, what a radical concept that is, that it's okay to lie. It's okay to undermine the reality of the person being lied to. And if they lie enough to us, we're not going to know the difference between truth or false. Is it true? Is it false? We're not going to know the difference. What's our reference point? How are we going to know? So as a Buddhist, we try to speak skillfully and speak in a truthful way. But there's also something known as noble silence. If you can't say anything nice, maybe it's okay not to say anything at all. And the 5th precept is not to consume intoxicants, not to get high. I ain't drunk, I just been drinking. A famous blues song. The problem with drinking intoxicants or consuming intoxicants is anyway, it steals your wisdom. You become stupid. You become dumb. You do things that are unskillful. You may even break the other 4 precepts and not even know you did. So the foundation of being kind is to practice the 5 precepts. And you don't have to be Buddhist to practice the 5 precepts. You need to be human. Cats can't practice the 5 precepts. Dogs can't practice the 5 precepts. Only humans can. And that's why humans have the potential to be altruistic, to be good, to be kind, to transform the world in a very special way. We're the only animal that can do that. So now we have the foundation set. We've decided to practice the 5 precepts. Now we need a motivation. And I'm going to refer to the loving kindness meditation that's often used in Buddhism. So what's the motivation? What's the motivation to practice love through kindness? And first you focus on yourself, because we are the most important person in our life, initially. But as we mature, as our practice deepens, everyone else becomes more important than we are. But we don't start there. So we're going to say, my motivation is I want to be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. That's my motivation. That's why I'm going to practice love through kindness, because I want to be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in order to go to the happiest place on earth, Anaheim, $87. I'm going to save you $87 right now. You don't need to go there to be happy. Happiness is an inside job. We don't get it from the outside. We realize it from the inside. Peaceful. This is a hard sell. Peaceful sounds boring, doesn't it? I mean, how about the roller coaster ride of life? The highs and the lows. Isn't that the most exciting part? Until you're about 30 or 40. But then you want to just get off of that roller coaster for a while and just sort of have it, flatline. Peace is good. It allows you to take it everywhere you go. And free from suffering. The only reason Buddhism exists today is because we want to be free from suffering. And the Buddha said, this is why we suffer, and this is how to end that suffering. And that's been 2,500 years, and we are still suffering. But the teachings allow us to suffer less, and ultimately, eventually, end that suffering for good. How many people do that? Not too many, it seems. And the ones that do, we probably wouldn't recognize them anyway, because they're not screaming or yelling. They're just sort of being peaceful, almost invisible. So now we're going to have our aspiration. We have the motivation. I want to be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. Now the aspiration. And I love the word aspire, because I remember the Plymouth Aspire. And if you remember that car as I do, it was aspiring to be a car. And it's no longer sold, so it didn't make it, So what's our aspiration now? Our aspiration, may I be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. That's the motivation. May no harm come to me. May no difficulties come to me. May no problems come to me. May I always find fulfillment. May I also have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. It's a lot to aspire to. We have the motivation, we have the aspiration. Now, what you need to do is memorize it or have it on a flashcard if you don't want to memorize it. But you need to start with yourself, number one. You need to tell that to yourself every day. You need to upload this information every day so you don't forget. The problem, as I see it, is we keep forgetting the important stuff. And our habit patterns are so strong, the loop continues. And people have always told me we can learn by our mistakes. I don't buy it anymore. Because a lot of people keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. We can't learn from our mistakes, but we can change the way we experience those mistakes. Okay? So now we have this aspiration, we have this motivation, we've done it to ourselves every morning. Now we're going to expand it. And it's tricky. You got to be careful about the way you expand this love through kindness, because you don't want your love to turn into lust. Because there's nothing kind about lust. It's controlling. It's selfish. It's filled with greed, but it's a lot of fun. So we got to be cautious. So, in my case, I'm going to speak for myself that I sort of have an attraction to the opposite sex. So I would start my love and kindness to a lovable guy of some sort that I have no attraction to other than being a buddy. And I would want him to suffer less, to be happy, to be peaceful. And once I started with that, I would find a lovable female that I had little attraction to. And I would also want her to be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. So we start with this lovable person. Once we get good with this sort of neutral, lovable person in our life, male and female, then we go towards a more intimate person in our life, a male and then a female. And we want them to be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. And then we go to a neutral person, somebody we are indifferent about, don't care, maybe have never met. Now, there are 7 billion people in the world today. Lust is alive and well. But we can be kind to each and every one of them if we allow ourselves to practice love through kindness to all the people we don't know, which will be most of the people in the world. Each one of us has people in our life that cause problems, that push our buttons, that really are difficult to be around. We got to love them too. We got to be kind to them as well. So now you bring them into the picture. All the rascals in your life, you know, who just don't want you to be as happy as they are. And then finally, last but not least, all the people you really hate, you know? And I hate to say this about myself, but there are people in this world I don't like. And it's difficult to love them. It's difficult to be kind to them. It's difficult to admit that I don't like them. But it's the truth. So I need to practice love through kindness towards them, so eventually my relationship towards them will change, because my experience of them is changing every time I do my love through kindness meditation. My job, as I see it, is to change the way I experience the world. Some people say the world is terrible. Some people say the world is wonderful. Some people say this about the world. Some people say that about the world. But the world is just the world. It's always been this way. It will always be this way. But I don't have to settle for that, because I'm in charge, perhaps, of the way I experience my world. And each and every one of us has my world. We all have our own worlds. And yet, I think because we have similar sense doors, eyes, ears, nose, taste, touch, thinking, we experience this world in a similar way, but not the same way. So each and every one of us can change our world if we put our mind to it through love and kindness. So now we're evolving. Our mind is starting to get subtle. We're starting to see the importance that love is a connection to the rest of the world, and hate is a disconnection to the rest of the world? And what we want to do now is take this intention, the intention of love through kindness, and manifest it in activity. The activity of compassion, reducing suffering in the world. Love by itself is fine, but it doesn't change anything until it turns into speech and action. That's the difficult part. Now you're going to go out into the world and be kind to people who don't like you, who don't care about you, who don't know you. And you might end up being a volunteer. Maybe if you don't like people, you could go to a shelter for cats and dogs and help them. Cats and dogs are easier to love than people. My experience. So now you're working on this, and you're out there maybe once a week or once a month, and you're helping people, and you're giving some of your stuff away. And if you can't give anything away, you're giving some of your time away, and you're listening, and you're practicing this love through kindness because you're uplifting, updating, bringing it into your head every morning or every evening or both. It's becoming you. Now, we've all heard of enlightenment. I'm not quite sure what it is, but let me give you my definition of enlightenment. My definition of enlightenment is the interconnectedness and interdependence of all phenomena. The interconnectedness and interdependence of all phenomena. So we're practicing a loving kindness meditation. We're doing silent meditation. We're bringing our minds to a place of peace and stillness. And all of a sudden, we have this peak experience. We have this epiphany. And it may not even happen in meditation. It may happen while you're walking on the beach or driving in your car. Something shifts. Something shifts. And it shifts because of all the work you've done on yourself and all the conditions you have changed. And now you have found the right conditions. But I can't take credit for it. The I, the self, the me, the mine, can't take credit for it. It's simply a rearranging of conditions. And in this one moment, you transcend self. You transcend who you are. And you reconnect to the universe around you. It's like coming home. You're no longer separate any longer. There's no subtle fear or anxiety that it's just you against the world. The world embraces you and takes you back for just one moment. And you know this is the way it's been and always been. But you can't live there because you have to be able to operate your car. You have to be able to open the door and answer your cell phone. You have to be able to do a lot of things which requires you to be separate from those things in order to manipulate them. If you're one with the door, you'll never leave. But in this moment of peak experience, in this moment of selflessness, the heart opens and breaks. It breaks. And you might cry, you might be sad, because now you see with such clarity that every person in this world is connected to you in a very intimate and special way. And if there's one person hungry because they can't find food, there's a part of you now that's hungry. And if one person is homeless because they can't find shelter, now there's a part of you that's homeless. And if one person is dying, now there's a part of you that's dying. And you can no longer turn your head and pretend it doesn't matter anymore. Because every time you look out and see those people, you see you. And it doesn't go away. And now you're planning on your next vacation, and you say to your spouse or your partner or your loved one, well, where should we go? And they might say, well, where can we go where no one suffers? And sometimes there's no place to go to take a vacation. Sometimes for the rest of your life, you're doing for others rather than yourself, because you see yourself in others. And it starts with being kind. It starts with not wanting to make a difference in the world, but wanting to make a difference in the way you experience the world. It's one of those things where we have something called a bodhisattva. The bodhisattva is someone who takes a vow to be reborn as a human being as long as it takes to end human suffering or even suffering in sentient beings, which is a really long time to be reborn. And you keep coming back. And the bodhisattva state of mind goes like this. Well, if I'm helping somebody and they cut off my right hand, I should be thankful they didn't cut off my left hand. Bodhisattva. If they cut off both hands, I should be thankful they didn't cut off my legs too. If they cut off my legs and my hands, I should be thankful they didn't cut off my head. If they cut off my head, I should be thankful they used a sharp knife. Can you imagine living your life like that? Being of service in that way? That the only thing that you get up in the morning for is to be kind? And the only reason you go to sleep at night is because you're exhausted? Because there is something called compassion fatigue, and a lot of people who volunteer suffer from it. You just don't have one more ounce of energy to be of service to anything. I can remember at the center, we were meditating, and meditation was over. It was 9 o'clock, and somebody comes and knocks on the door in sort of a hurried way, excitable way. And we opened up the door, and they said, "You have rabbits down in that yard, 2 yards down. You got to do something about the rabbits." And I feed 24 cats a day, and myself occasionally. And I said, "I just can't do anything about the rabbits. I don't have any energy to do anything about the rabbits." Thankfully, somebody else had enough energy to catch the rabbits and take them to a rabbit shelter. They actually have rabbit shelters. Very cool. So we don't have to do it all ourselves. There's a whole army of people out there practicing kindness. We do as much as we can. We do what we're best at, perhaps. And sometimes if we can't do what we're best at, we get better at the stuff we're not very good at. And then you say to yourself, well, what's the payoff? Is there a payoff with all this kindness, all this compassion and activity, all this love? And a Buddhist would say, absolutely. And the payoff, there's 10. There's 10 things that happen that make your life better. Number 1, you get to sleep in great comfort. Now, I like sleeping. It's like being dead without the commitment. Number 2, you awake in comfort. Number 3, you never ever have a bad dream. Number 4, you're dear to all human beings. And then you're also dear to non-human beings. Then you are protected by the angels. If you practice kindness, according to Buddhism, angels will protect you. You will be safe from fire, poisons, and swords. Your mind will concentrate quickly. You will be serene and peaceful in every situation, and you will die without confusion. Now, those are 10 pretty good things just from being kind. Just from being kind. So, let me tell you what to look out for as you're doing this loving kindness practice. Love through kindness. The first thing you have to look out for is selfish desire. You might say, I don't want to do it anymore. It's too hard. The second thing you need to look out for is hatred and anger. you might start hating the fact that so many creatures out there need your help. The next thing you need to watch out for is being lazy and slothful. I love that word. Because how many times do you say to yourself, well, maybe I'll just take a little nap? I know I take a nap every afternoon. In 20 minutes, then I'll get up and do it. And sometimes it works. Then there's agitation and worry. You start to worry about all the things you need to do, all the folks you need to save, all the cats you need to feed, and you never feel comfortable or get anything done. And last but not least, skeptical doubt. Is it possible? Is it possible to even think about doing this, let alone doing it? Absolutely. We just do it one thing at a time. That's it. Don't even have to go by one day at a time. Just one thing at a time. And then do the next thing, and then do the next thing, and then at the end of the day, a lot of things have been done. But one at a time. You don't want to defeat yourself because of future or regret because of past. You want to be locked in this present moment experience of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So my question to you, is it better to be someone or is it better to do something? A lot of people feel they are something. But I really appreciate the people that do something. Thank you for coming out on this Sunday and listening to what I have to say. And I hope you find the energy to change your experience of the world and make it a better place. Thank you. Thank you. A little blues. Now, I had an epiphany, I had a peak experience just a couple weeks ago. There's this fellow, and his name is Walter Trout, and he's a famous blues guitar player. And his latest CD is Blues in a Daze, D-A-Z-E. And it might be a little, it's close. And 4 years ago, I spoke at his church, not knowing it was his church. And I spoke about doing volunteer work in prisons and juvenile halls. And I brought my harmonica with me, and I played a little harmonica in my talk, and Walter just was blown away because he's a blues guy. And he said, that was so cool that you're helping people and you're playing the blues. And he says, one day I'd like you to sit in with me. And I said, okay. So 4 years later, he becomes my friend on Facebook. And it turns out he wanted me to sit in at the Irvine Lake Blues Festival. He was the closing act on the first night. Now, I thought to myself, well, this is really cool, but this is really scary too, because I am not professional. I just do it for fun. This guy makes a living at it. And you're going to be on the stage, and you're going to have a really loud noise behind you, a guitar and a bass and drums and organ. And can you even hear anything? And then he just said, it'll be in the key of A. Now, we didn't talk about the song. We didn't practice, you know. But that's what blues guys do, right? You know? You just get up and do it. So I was invited up, and I did it, and it was really a fun experience. I don't know how I did. People said I did okay, but I couldn't hear myself. It was too loud. And I couldn't monitor myself because I was so stuck in the present moment, because it was such an exciting adventure, and there was a lot of fear and dread. And then he said, maybe we can do it again. And I said, well, maybe. So I brought my harmonica with me, and maybe we can do just a little blues to end the talk. Here we go.